Come join Greg and Richard right here on Talking Red. Ange Postecoglou says we will see his style and principles implemented into the Nottingham Forest team that will take to the pitch in South Wales tomorrow night for the third round Carabao Cup tie against Swansea. Will we see plenty of changes in personnel, or will Ange see this as the perfect game to play his strongest 11 to get them on his wavelength and playing his brand of football? We'd like to welcome you back if you have been here before. And if this is your first time, hello and welcome to Talking Reds, a Nottingham Forest podcast. I'm your host, Greg Oram. He's Richard Spray, and we are joined by two of our regular fan contributors. It's Steve Battlemuch in Nottingham and Scott Terry over in Australia. Now then, Ange said it won't take long and that it would be Wednesday.
Oh no, mate, no worry, months. It won't be weeks, it'll be Wednesday. We Wednesday. This is not a project. We Wednesday. This is not a project. This is not a project. Yeah, but Wednesday night we'll start seeing, some real principles being embedded. It won't take long. It won't take long. This is not a project. We Wednesday.
Feels like we are getting started up. Definitely Richard Spray. How you doing over in Oklahoma?
Yeah, I'm good. Put the West Ham and Arsenal matches well in the rear view. Right, had a nice visit with the family in Arizona, so I went West Coast for the vacation. So feeling pretty good, well rested. Was weird not being in a chaotic household like I normally am, but now I'm back to the chaos and back to the into the fray with the discussion and ready for Ange Ball.
Back to the chaos of Talking Reds as well. Steve Battlemuch back over from the US. You've been on a trip yourself. You're back in the UK. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, it's good to be back to the rain and the the grimness of England from the sun of America. I was just saying earlier to the lads that I was slightly late for the pre-discussion because I was having to give my passport number to the ticket office to make sure I could pick up my Betis ticket in Seville. And that really kind of brings it home to you, doesn't it? I'm going to see the Reds next week in Spain for the first time in 30 years. And 4 years ago, we were sacking Chris Hughton.
Yeah. Well, we have come a long way. And that should be something that is a theme in terms of mindset that everyone really should have at the moment, especially after what we saw on Saturday. And we'll get more into that in a moment. But Scott from Down Under is with us. How you doing, buddy?
G'day, guys. Yeah, really good. Thank you. Really good. We had the meetup on Saturday, which I think we're going to talk about in a bit. And it was great to get together with so many Forest fans. Wasn't the result that we wanted against Arsenal, but still was just good to see people see the Garibaldi Red. Really cool meetups.
Indeed. And so, I'm going to put some pictures onto the stage here, and I can expand them now as well to make it bigger, everyone. We've been given the expansion tool, so hopefully those watching can see. I'll flick through them. Scott, you've been instrumental in organising these meetups via the Nottingham Forest Facebook page. So I want to say well done to you. And I'm not sure if you've had any assistance with that. Maybe you can tell us just briefly a little bit about, how you do it, why you think it's important to do it, and how much work goes into it. And I'll flick through the pictures as you're talking.
Yeah, well, on screen there, that's the Sydney Reds front and centre there in the white tracky top. You've got Glenn, who's a big part of organising the Sydney Reds. On the next one there, you got that's the Melbourne Reds, and you got Ali on the bottom right there, who does a lot of sort of coordination with the Melbourne Reds. This is a new coming together. This was a meetup in Newcastle. Newcastle is sort of northern New South Wales. So just from just from chats online and people saying, oh, is there any Forest fans here, sort of in the Newcastle area or the Hunter Valley area. And so they've just kind of found, they've sort of run into each other on the website, and then they've managed to, sort of lock in and then just arranged a venue. So really good. This is the Perth Reds. I'm not sure that some of them don't look too happy. I'm not sure if this was at the end of the 3-0. But yeah, look, really good to get those guys there as well. And this was the this is Brisbane Red. So this is the meetup that I went to. There was a couple on the back there, sort of back rightish. There's a guy, Darren, who was over celebrating his marriage anniversary with his wife, and so they actually just turned up randomly. They kind of found us again online and turned up to the do. So it was great. It was just really good to see everybody. I mean, there's a lot of coordination that goes on in the States. I just provide a little bit of assistance in terms of sort of bringing everyone together. But yeah, there's a lot of people that do some great work in the individual states. So yeah, it's just really good to see people come together. I think for me as well, the more and more I think publicity is maybe not the right word, but the more and more sort of focus we can get on Forest fans down here in Australia. Obviously, we've now got Ange as a manager as well. Who knows? Maybe we could get a pre-season down here. We could get the team down here. I think that would be the dream at this stage. Would be to get Forest coming down this sort of neck of the woods. There's the New Zealand supporters group as well. So there's a lot of Forest fans down this part of the world, and just sort of getting together, chatting to people where they're from in Nottingham. What do you do? You're kind of your Forest story. It's really good.
Fantastic. And Forest all over the world is something that we try to preach about. And since you came on, Scott, and joined us for One With, and now form part of our regular contributors, it's something that Richard and I have been quite passionate about, is making sure that Forest fans all over the world can tune in from wherever they are. But certainly we thought, hopefully there's a few fans from Australia that will tune in. And I've said it a couple of times in the pod, but now we've got Big Ange in charge. There's been an influx of Ange Postecoglou disciples. And so if you are listening from Australia for the first time, or maybe this is your second or third time, thank you for coming on board. We are balanced as we can, and we'll offer the opinions, whether they're good or bad, and you can join in the comments as well. Fraser is in the comments. He says, evening from New Zealand. So there's one from your neck of the woods or thereabouts as well, Scott. So Brucey over in Texas says, good morning from Texas, Fraser. And Tim Shipman, I believe, correct me, I think Tim might also be over in the States, so it might be off on that one. Mark Way NFFC, time to unleash the beast, he says, with a £2 donation that goes into the pot. Thank you very much indeed, Mark. Good afternoon to Kel. How you doing, Kel? Nice to have you with us as well. If you want to get involved in the comments, please do so. We hope you'll consider liking and subscribing. We have been boosted by that influx lately. Thank you if you've hit the subscribe button. Please do go ahead and hit it if you haven't so far. We are on the mission towards 2,000 YouTube subscribers. Apple Podcasters and Spotifyers, please leave us a 5-star review if you feel so inclined. That would be lovely. Just going to stick with you for another quick minute, Scott. What has the appointment of Ange, or how has the appointment of Ange gone down in Australia to anyone you've spoken to? Maybe other Forest fans, maybe other just regular Australians that haven't followed Forest previously. What kind of reaction have you witnessed so far?
I think generally it has been very positive. There is also an element of it's kind of a little bit bittersweet in a way, because obviously Nuno was very well liked by Forest fans, and then how it changed, and then Ange was brought in, and then also when obviously we've just gone and lost that last game to Arsenal. So whilst I think there's generally a positive sort of mindset towards Ange now coming in, I think we need to kind of get back into a bit of a routine, a rhythm, almost like an identity of what Forest is going to look like. And I think that's going to take, I don't think that's going to happen, tomorrow night at Swansea. We'll probably take a step forward, hopefully, tomorrow night at Swansea. But I think it's going to take a while. I don't think it will happen that quickly. But look, I think generally very positive. but I think it's going to take a while for the fans to really warm to Ange, similar as it did when Nuno took over from Steve Cooper. I think it's going to be very similar here as well. But the fact that Ange is an Aussie, he's got a lot of history here with clubs in Australia. He's had a stint in Japan as well. Obviously, he's been in Scotland with Celtic. You know, he's got fans all over the world. Generally, he's done very well wherever he's gone. So Ange has a real big following, and now he's managing another Premier League club. I can only see the interest going up again.
Yeah. And I think the proof will be in the pudding. I mean, he said in the press conference, and I snipped it into the intro, that it wasn't going to take long. It was going to be Wednesday. He said tomorrow night you're going to see my principles implemented. And that we think will mean front foot football and going forward, scoring lots of goals. So, Richard, I'm coming to you in just a second, but I want to say good morning from Sheffield, Kim says. She's commenting from X. Thank you very much. Trevor's in Adelaide. He says, I was here before Ange Gate. Well, Trev, thank you very much as well. And Billy Four Eyes, good evening from Tasmania. Pat Brett, we know you're in the USA, buddy, and we thank you for tuning in as usual. Okay, and yeah, Tim, I was way off. He's not in the States. He's in Mansfield. There we go. He wishes he was in the States. I get people mixed up. Okay, one more. Nate says, good evening from Sydney, Australia. I've got to say I'm loving all the Forest pods I've listened to. Super down to earth, rational supporters. We try our best, Nate. Right, we are going to try and be rational, Richard. I want to go round you three. I don't want to take too long on this because we are going to preview the Swansea game. But I haven't had your chance, Richard, to give me your take on what you thought about from Saturday against Arsenal. Obviously, it was Ange's first game in charge, and we previewed the game together. And it was an unchanged 11, albeit the swap for Morato coming in. What did you think of that? What stood out for you? Any positives that you can take away from that? We got the 3-0 hiding in the end, so I don't think we really turned up. But what are your overriding thoughts briefly?
Yeah, from an XG perspective, it kind of tracked with last season as well. When we played them away, it was not much. There was not much there, was there? I mean, we got opened up in midfield. It kind of became a bit of a run of teams that we seemingly got opened up in midfield, and so didn't see a whole lot different in Saturday's performance. It is what it is sort of day where you kind of anticipate this kind of outcome. It's obviously compounded by the fact that you're coming off of a really unexpected loss, I think is the only way to phrase it in terms of playing West Ham. But Elliot Anderson was probably the most quality player on the pitch, I think, as it relates to Forest. I mean, you know me, I'm a Morgan Gibbs White guy, so it's getting a bit. It's hard to say dire because it's not dire per se, because I think Ross talked about in the last pod about playing into form. I just worry about where what headspace he's in a bit right now, because we're sort of on this sort of run of play where he's either not good at all or he's sort of absent, and that's just not his way of approaching the game. He's having no impact is not what Morgan Gibbs White's about, especially in the position that he plays. But outside of that, I thought the positives were back. Well, I thought when the subs came on, a little bit of an energy lift, a little bit of an intensity lift. They looked a little bit more tight and composed and organized. I think a lot of it had to do with what you mentioned, Greg, too, about Morato actually being shifted back into an appropriate position for him versus playing that left back space, which I don't know why in the world Ange thought that was going to work. But we'll digress on that. It's over and done with at this stage. But Bakwa, to me, has vibes of last year's Madueke, right? So that he shows flashes, he shows trickiness on the ball and difficulty for opposing defenders to deal with. He actually had some really nice precision balls into the middle, into tight spaces, and he was getting crosses in. And so for me, that was the biggest positive. I know you guys talked about that in the last episode, but for me, that was the biggest positive watching the match was we've got a player there that we need to feature a little bit more. How he deploys that, how he works that in, how he gives time to enjoy and make sure he's managing the minutes effectively remains to be seen. But I think he's a player that's too dynamic and you can't leave him on the bench. And even having someone like a Callum Hudson-Odoi on the bench is going to be a value too, because it gives you something, gives you a little bit of punch if needed from an offensive standpoint. So overall, though, didn't really come away with anything too shocking, just isolated moments of brightness from certain players.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Morato thing, my view on that briefly was that he perhaps thought, well, Morato has played more in that team last season than anyone else, possibly in the back line. Savona's the other option, and he's brand new. And so maybe it was the lesser of two evils. Steve, I know you, I wasn't sure how much the match you managed to catch. I think, were you in transit and maybe you caught up with it since you've been back? But just briefly give us your kind of take on the Arsenal thing. And is it a case of, look, the hard work started as soon as Ange arrived through the door, but the season starts now?
Yeah, absolutely. I never expected we'd get anything. We've had 4 games at Arsenal since we come back. We've lost all 4. I think only the one where we scored late to make it 2-1 2 seasons ago did we get anywhere close. It was surreal for me because I was driving back from Heathrow. So it's the first game that I've either not seen in person or seen on TV live for a long time. So I was listening on the radio. First half, Talk Sport with Stuart Pearce as co-commentator. Second half, managed to get Radio Nottingham as they got closer to home. And it sounded from the comms very, very dire. Pearce was laying into Morato from the off. He spotted it within 3 minutes and he said, that guy's going to get skinned every time. Ange's got to sort something out about that. And obviously, we didn't manage to do that until Murillo went off injured. It was interesting. My lad was at the game and he was sending messages through, which my wife was reading. And he was saying that he thought that we weren't getting anything from the ref. But, I mean, I don't know if that was easy to tell or not. And I didn't, they weren't mentioning it on the radio at all. So it sort of made me wonder whether that was my son's bias in the stands of just looking for something to grab onto. But, I mean, the worrying stat for me was, what was it, 1 shot on goal, and that was off Chris Wood's chest. So we obviously didn't lay a glove on them. But I wasn't too worried. I'm far more worried about how we collapsed against West Ham than I am about losing to Arsenal. I don't think many teams will go to the Emirates and get something. So you're right. It all starts from tomorrow night. And I just think we've got to be patient and we've got to see it through for a few games. And to me, I see Swansea and Burnley very much in the same vein. He's going to be trying stuff. Because to me, the key game I don't want us to lose is Betis. I don't want us to lose our first European game. So I wanted to get a draw or win at Betis. So I think the next 2 games are key for Ange to sort out what he really wants to do and who he wants to start with against Betis.
Okay. Scott, just before we leave the Arsenal game then, I want to kind of get your take as the boys have chipped in as well. It's nice to organise the meetups. It's nice for everyone to get together like that. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that you struck lucky on the previous one because that was that the Brighton 7-0 that you guys struck lucky on. That was a perfect one, and of course it all falls apart and goes a bit to pot when you organise the meet-up, but the game doesn't quite live up to what you want it to be. So a bit flat in the end. I think we saw 1 or 2 glum faces in those pictures. Glum faces all over the world if you're a Forest fan. What did you take away from the Arsenal match, mate?
Yeah, I think similar. It was as Steve says, we haven't won there in the last 4 times. So it was always going to be a really tough day at the office. I remember, I think they had just before they scored the first goal, they were almost like camped in our box or inserted in our final third, corner after corner, and I remember turning around and saying we need to break out and try and stop this pattern of play, otherwise they're going to score. And then it was a pretty good, I hate to say it, but it was actually a pretty good strike. But yeah, it just, and as soon as that went in, it just that feeling that the pressure that they did have on us. I think as Richard's saying, the 2 positives were Bakwa when he came on, and Anderson yet again had another good game. But we just seem to have a couple of players that just seem a little bit out of form. Milenkovic isn't playing at his best, and Gibbs White isn't playing at his best. And when you think around how good they were for us last season, then it's kind of we really need to get those guys back into form, back into a real rhythm for the team. And then in terms of back to the Arsenal game, when they scored so early second half and the way they scored as well, they managed to get around Savoma after Morato, then moved into the middle to cover from Murillo. So yeah, that was that wasn't a great look, was it? But then, you know, we'll see. Had a couple of training sessions with the team, so you can't be too harsh on the lad, and he's a young lad as well. So it just had all the makings of it. We were very unlikely to actually get much from that game. And as you say, I much preferred watching us beat Brighton 7-0 compared to losing to Arsenal 3-0. But look, as Steve says, you know, let's focus on Wednesday and the next game against Swansea, and hope for great things there.
Okay. Stephen Poll was in the comments. He says, "Hit the like, boys and girls." So if you can hit the like, we'd appreciate that. Pat Brett says, "I hope you had a good holiday, Greg." I did, thank you. He was enjoying watching me trying to tune in from wherever I was. I think the funny one was on the rocks at the beach in Italy. It didn't quite go according to plan, but we tried and failed. When you get back to Blighty and the rain comes lashing down, your holiday does feel like a distant memory. Kel says, "I think the one outfield player who's number one on the team sheet is Anderson." I think we'll all agree with you there, Kel. Maybe Morgan Gibbs White needs dropping to give him a wake-up call that he is droppable. We're going to get onto that kind of conversation a little bit as well, Kel. So thank you for mentioning that. Nate says, "In my opinion, give Morgan time. New system will allow him to flourish, similar to Maddison and Kulu at Spurs. It's going to take time for the team to drill in what they should do and where the other players will be." And Brucey is thrilled and happy that Bakwa is an actual creative winger with a nice change of pace, and goes on to say that even his 5-year-old spotted that Morato was crap at left back. All right. Okay. One more thing as well. Yeah, Big Arn is asking, Steve, are you tall? And were you in the nav before Brentford? He thinks he might have spotted you. All the podcast people out there all seem to be really massive when I meet them in person, like Matt Davis, Pete Blackburn, Mikey. They're all up here. Even Reese and Christian from Red Side of the Trent, I saw them in the nav. They're all giants. So are you another giant, Steve?
No, I'm about 5'11".
Okay.
Maybe I'm close to the camera, making it look like I'm huge, but I'm not really.
Okay, right. Let's change gear. Move on. We're going to go on to the Swansea game. So I'm going to give you like a little bit of an opposition look myself, because obviously they're sitting in the Championship. It's the first Carabao Cup game of our season, and hopefully there will be more. So Swansea City have played 5 league games this season with 2 wins, 2 draws, and 1 defeat. And they currently sit 7th in the Championship table. They've won 1 and drawn 2 out of the 3 matches that they've played at home in the Championship. Now then, in the Carabao Cup, they beat Crawley Town 2-1 at home in the first round, and they were also at home in the second round. They drew 1-1 with Plymouth in normal time, and they needed penalties to win the tie overall. They won it 5-3 on penalties. Okay, so here's a bit more of a snapshot on Swansea City this season under their manager, Alan Sheehan. They're a possession-first side who build patiently from the back, but they can flip it into fast transitions when the space is there. Going to pop on the screen. Their last game against Hull was a 2-2 draw, and there's the formation. And their last Carabao Cup game was that match I've just mentioned against Plymouth. That's also on the left. So for those that can see, they usually set up in a 4-2-3-1, or sometimes it is a 4-3-3. In possession, one midfielder will drop in as a single pivot, while one of the fullbacks will tuck in to form a back 3. Now that gives them secure platforms to play through pressure. Their centre-backs and goalkeeper look to connect short rather than go long. In attack, the striker often drops into pockets to link up play, with wide players running beyond. They use fullbacks that overlap to deliver crosses and cutbacks. And the focus is on stretching opponents wide, then creating central overloads through patient possession. Out of possession, Swansea mix their press, sometimes sitting in shape, other times springing into a high press to force mistakes. It can be caught late in games if they try to manage tempo too cautiously. So that's one of their weaknesses. If they're trying it too cautiously and late on, they can be caught. And the space behind the fullbacks is a known vulnerability. And just to close, overall, we can expect a team that wants to control the ball, but can punish you if you give them turnovers. Cut off the single pivot and exploit space wide, and you disrupt Swansea's rhythm. Now then, in a nutshell, that is what I learned about Swansea City. It might be that when they face Premier League opposition on their home ground, that we don't see them able to employ that kind of pressing tactic or that kind of higher possession-based game. But that's how they like to play. And when I was doing that bit of research, Richard, I was looking at thinking, well, that sounds like Ange Postecoglou. That sounds like the kind of style that he would want. It's always difficult when you face a team that you haven't played for ages and ages and ages. And obviously, they might see this as a chance to make one or two changes. I want to quickly mention as well, their key man that I've picked out is their striker, Zan Vipotnik. He's a right-footed Slovenian centre-forward. He's scored 3 goals this season, 1 assist. And he's got an XG of 0.8, so he's kind of outperforming himself just a little bit. Last season, he only scored 7 goals in the whole season, guys. He's got 3 so far this season. So he's kind of outperforming himself. And don't forget Marko Stamanic, the midfielder that we sold to Swansea in the summer transfer window, the New Zealander. We didn't really get to see much of him. Maybe an odd signing. It was one of those ones that came and went, and we've got to maybe try and get beyond doing that anymore. He's made just 1 start for them, Richard, and another off the bench. Give us your overall kind of pre-match thoughts on this. How do you see this one panning out?
Yeah, I mean, I think just from a quality, even our second level of, second team, if you will, that second 11, I think is what it's been referred to as, I think is certainly of a much higher quality than what they're going to field by all means. That's probably not saying anything revelatory by any means, but, a couple of players, as you mentioned, the Vipotnik is clear because he dominates, the goal contribution stat for the team. But Anus is also another guy on the left that's a bit of a challenge. And as you pointed out, they do a lot of possession, but when you look at their actual passing percentage in terms of what level of passing we're talking about, it's incredibly small on anything over 15 yards, basically. So they're doing a lot of tippy tap possession sort of work, similar to sort of a Southampton that we saw in the Premier League last season. So I don't think that there's going to be a significant concern in terms of them opening us up too much. But I do believe that you have to at least try to manage Inusa and Vipotnik. And I think, we'll see who the center back pairing is for this particular match, but I'd imagine we have enough experience, in a Bali or someone of that ilk to be able to kind of deal with him. But he is a little bit quicker. And as you pointed out, he'll drop deep. The other situation with Inusa, he kind of reminds me stylistically of Callum Hudson-Odoi. He's clearly not anywhere close to the quality that Callum is, but he's still a tricky player and he's someone they have to be cognizant of and keep an eye on. So, depending on how we manage that right back, we're going to, maybe blend it a little bit with a little bit of experience and keep Nico in there. But, with our fullback situation being a bit tenuous, especially with Ina being out, maybe it's not a time for him. Maybe it's an Abbott scenario. But he's the kind of player, I think Abbott, you could probably manage a player such as Inusa. But anyway, yeah, I mean, those guys definitely pop off the tape and off the film when you watch it. So I'm not too concerned, but they do I think they've 67% of their goals have come from open play. So they do like to kind of, spread the ball around, try to create little pockets of space and find those little lanes. But yeah, nothing that you look at that says, oh gosh, there's one thing that they're so good at that you've got to completely neutralize it and you've got to be concerned about it. So yeah, not too overly worried about this one.
I do think it'll be a test though. And I think we need that. And my thoughts on this is that Ange has been quite certain that he doesn't have time. It will be Wednesday. I keep going back to that. It will be Wednesday, which is tomorrow, that we see his principles implemented into the team. Of course, if he can't make it, I can't get my teeth in. He won't wave a magic wand and they won't all start being this dramatic version of Ange straight away. I get that. But I'm certainly expecting to see strong elements of it. So how does Ange play this one, Steve? Now, he played a very strong Spurs team a year ago in the 3rd round of the Carabao Cup against Coventry. So similar kind of level of opposition. And he played a very strong Spurs team. And in that season, Spurs got to the semi-final of the Carabao Cup. So it feels like maybe he takes his competition seriously. And so where does the League Cup rank in terms of importance? Does that mean he might play strongest 11? Does he think, listen, I haven't got the luxury of making changes. This is almost like a pre-season game for me. I've got to treat this as a game where I get my strongest 11 on the pitch, playing in my style and in my image. There aren't going to be the wholesale changes. It's going to be his best 11. What do you think Ange is going to do, and how do you think he'll play it?
Well, I think the first question is, does he know his best 11 after a week? I'm not sure he does yet. I think this next couple of games might give him some opportunity to work out what his best 11 is. If you go back a year to our equivalent game against Newcastle in the Carabao Cup, Nuno did drop a lot of the starting 11 and played in effect a second 11. And we sort of held our own against Newcastle, to be honest, lost on penalties. We weren't too bad. But we knew that second 11, as the season grew on, were a second 11. Now, I'm not sure, certainly in the midfield and attacking positions, we know what our best lineup is anymore. Whether that's because of form or because the new guys have only just got here. But, Bakwa could be a regular starter, couldn't he? Instead of Ndoye, which, 3 weeks ago, everyone was saying, well, Ndoye's going to be great and this, that, and the other. Well, Bakwa might be, starting instead. McAtee, I think I'd like to see McAtee start. I'd like to see Morgan rested, properly rested, and just given the whole game off. Get McAtee in from the start. Get minutes into Douglas Luiz. Let's see what there is in this squad. And I don't think, if I'm honest, I think he'll take it seriously. I don't think we're suddenly going to play a load of kids out of the academy. But I think we've got enough good players in this team. The areas we know we're going to be struggling in, with Murillo injured, is who do we play in the centre of defence and who do we play at left back, right back. I mean, they're the only surprises, I think, when we look at the team sheet tomorrow night, because whoever he plays up front or in midfield, I think we're comfortable that we're going to have enough to win the game. Swansea have had 5 games in the league. They've won 2, drawn 2 and lost 1. The 2 they've won were against both Sheffield clubs, who are the bottom 2 clubs in the league. So I don't think we should worry too much about them. They've got I think it'll be a competitive game. They'll want to do well in front of their own fans, but their capacity for their ground is 21,000. They've only been getting 15,000 this year. So they're not filling out from the start of the season. So probably not a massive amount of confidence, even though they're sitting 7th in the league. So I think it's all to play for. I think we get some decent attacking players on the pitch. We got a couple of goals up. Everyone will be talking about Ange ball and a bounce into Burnley. If we get caught out in a set piece, or they've got a tricky winger and we can't deal with him on the wing, and we lose 1-0 or something, then there'll be a bit of doom and gloom around, won't there? But I just think we've got to go into it with confidence that Ange will try stuff out. Probably even in both halves, he might try stuff out. You might be seeing players coming on at half time to get 45 minutes into them. I'm quite excited about the game. I mean, it's bizarre to think third round of the Cup away to Swansea, you get excited, but I'm quite excited to see what team we end up with.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect game for him, really, following on from the Arsenal episode. And it is a starting point in our season. I'm not quite sure if we're going to see too many changes from the team that took to the pitch against Arsenal, though. And you're right, Steve, when you say, well, does Ange know what his best team is? He clearly went with players to start the game against Arsenal that had started the 3 previous games, and I can understand that. And usually a manager in the Carabao Cup uses that opportunity, as you touched on, Nuno did it last year, to make changes to give backup players game time. I'm not sure that Ange sees that he's got that luxury. I think Bakwa coming in is a perfect chance for him to get a start. I see Ndoye being his selection on the left, though, and I think that maybe Callum's the one that might possibly miss out and has got a bit of a battle on his hand. Ndoye on the left for Switzerland is better than Ndoye on the right for Forest at the moment. Does Chris Wood start? Because obviously he had that travelling back, and I didn't think he'd start against Arsenal. This would be the kind of game where you'd leave him out and give Callum Iwendo or Igor Jesus the opportunity. So kind of arguing with myself for making no changes, but at the same time seeing a lot of logic in the reasons to make changes. But because of Ange coming in where he has come in with the players that he's got at his disposal and wanting to get that style of play happening really quickly, it's a very, very difficult call. It is the fullback area, Scott, that is a bit of a concern. Do we see Zinchenko coming straight away to left back, Williams right back with, let's say, a Milenkovic with Morata or Milenkovic with Bolly? I mean, thinking defensively at the moment, is he going to make that kind of switch with Zinchenko coming in? So we've got to go away to Burnley on Saturday, and we've got to go away to Real Betis. So is it a chance to get your first choice defence in for all 3 games?
I think so. Yeah, I think he has to bring Zinchenko in. I think what we saw from Morata at left back and then Savomo coming in, I think Zinchenko is a logical inclusion. And if he does well and he beds in well with the other defenders, I can see him keeping that position for quite some time. I think the game itself is a real opportunity for Ange to play a lot of the other, the second team players. I'd really like to see him really mix things up. I'd like to see Callum Wendo up front. I'd even think, and you mentioned Wood. I mean, Wood's travelled, down to New Zealand. He's travelled an awful long distance, and I know how that trip can kind of take it out of you. So I think absolutely Woody playing on Saturday against Arsenal. Rest him for this game. I'd play Callum Wendo. I think the attacking 3, so McAtee, Bakwa, and then Hutchinson as well. I mean, Hutchinson's our record signing. It's like he had a game against against Palace, wasn't it, where some of his finishing was questioned, and then people have sort of started to question him. Give him a chance. This is a great opportunity against a championship team. Give him the opportunity. I think as well. I think Douglas Luiz. I think I've heard a report that Ange has already said he will play him, and I think he has to. I don't understand why he hasn't played already, even if it was just 10-15 minutes to sort of finish a game off. I'm a little bit surprised that we haven't seen Douglas Luiz. But to me, this is a brilliant opportunity to bring those players in. And really sort of freshen it up, I can't decide whether this game is going to be is a free hit or is it a banana skin, because there's I'm hoping it's the free hit. I'm hoping we attack well. Ideally, I really like us to score early, get a bit of confidence, and then can really sort of settle into the game. But yeah, for me, I would be changing things up, and I hope Ange does. You mentioned we've got a game Wednesday night, a game on Saturday, and then we've got Betis the middle of next week as well. So 3 games. Why not mix it up? Why not bring in these players which aren't getting regular footy, and just mix it up and see what they can do?
Okay. We are talking about Nottingham Forest trip to Swansea in the Carabao Cup, a potential banana skin. I'm not quite sure that I think this is a free hit. I think following the last 2 games, 2 3-0 defeats, I think the fans would take it quite negatively if we lost this one. Certainly if we lost it in normal time. I think the fan base are wanting and expecting a bit of a statement. Ange Postecoglou has come out and says, look, I'm going to implement my style from the off. It's going to be Wednesday. He's quite forceful, and I like that. He's backing himself as he does. Whether he makes lots of changes or a couple of changes or tweaks it here and there, I'm expecting the players that takes the pitch to have had a rocket up their asses since Saturday, and a wholesale new style, new mantra being fed into them. So we're going to be getting into that and our team selection after this break.
The Cheese Trader, based on Grape Lane in York, is a cheese lover's paradise. Home to some wonderful specialty cheeses, relishes and chutneys, and also with a fantastic street food menu. Try their loaded fries or posh cheese on toast. It'll be the best you've ever had. Owned by Forest fan Stu Freestone, the Cheese Trader proudly sponsors Talking Reds. Quote Talking Reds every time to get 10% off your order. The Cheese Trader and Talking Reds, the perfect cheesy mix.
Our good friend Stu Freestone is in York. He has a fantastic little shop there Cheese aplenty, and so please give him a shout if you want some of his goodness. 10% off if you quote Talking Reds. All right. Pat Brett says in the comments, does anyone know if the new rule applies to Europa and allows us the sub for Zinchenko in for Aina? Yes, we think so. We know that there is a new rule. We are 99.9% confident that that means that Zinchenko can come in for Aina. Aina does not need to be listed on the list of 8. We've got plenty of other players to take up those quotas. So Aina isn't listed. He's just a regular squad member, comes out, and Zinchenko goes in his place. We're waiting for confirmation from the club on that. The West Ham debacle was Nuno's last game, and maybe he knew it was his last game. Who knows? But something went wrong. I was at the match. It was heading towards 0-0. Last 20 minutes, it all came apart. And so, yeah, it was a disaster. The game against Arsenal, another 3-0. It was Ange's first game in charge. We didn't know what he was going to do, how he was going to approach it. But it's kind of 2 games that bookend the start and the finish of 2 managers for Forest. And we've got to get past that now. But we're still very much unsure, Richard Spray, as to what he's going to do tomorrow. We've been saying, what would he do? Whoever takes the pitch, they're going to have to be on board with his mantra and what he wants them to do. So I'm going to go around you 3. I'm going to ask you to give me, I did this the other day with the guys, not what Ange's team is going to be, but what team you would pick. Bearing in mind everything we know, that this is a Carabao Cup game against a lower level opposition, if you like. It's away from home. Knowing that we travel to Burnley on Saturday, we travel to Betis next Wednesday, knowing that Ange is going to look to make a statement, knowing that players are in competition for places, knowing all of that, that's your information. What is going to be your team? I'm going to share my other screen, of course, and give you the FOT mob. And so here it comes. Richard Spray, I'm coming to you first. Give me your preferred starting 11 for tomorrow night. Look, I can even make it bigger now because there we go. So hopefully those watching can see. I've cut Matt Sells out in goal. So first and foremost, Richard, is Matt Sells your goalkeeper tomorrow, or do we see John Victor or Angus Gunn coming in?
I think John Victor's coming in. That would be my assessment, because he's, as much as you want to blend a little bit of experience and keep something on the pitch that you can kind of is consistent and you can rely on, I still think he's going to give Matt Sells an opportunity to rest, because he's such a key piece and you don't want to risk him being injured in a match like this. I would say on your back line from left to right, I'm going Zinchenko on your left back. I'm going to go Morato on your left center back, although I could see the potential of having, potentially folding in a Jaracuna or, someone like that. But I'm going to say that instead of Milinkovic, we'll see Willy Bolly. And then on the right, I'm going to go with Savona. I think he's going to give him a little bit of time to kind of develop, because I know he's going to want to come back and kind of, get some retribution for his mistake, unfortunately, that led to that goal. Right at the beginning of the second half. You're making Arsenal
goalkeeper and back 4 changes. Richard Spray, the boss, with everything you're happy to do that. A back 4 change up and a goalkeeper change up.
Yeah, because I think you've got so many matches coming up. I mean, you've got 4 matches in about a 10-day span. So you've got to be able to manage some of that. And I mean, I know these are professional footballers and they're good athletes, but I don't want to run the risk, because if you lose a Nico Williams, you're really in a difficult situation with Premier League play. So I'm going, full switch around. I mean, if you're playing someone, if you're playing a Premier League team in this cup tie, then maybe you might rethink that. But I'm going to go getting Anderson some opportunity to sit. So I'm going to go, keep Anderson in. Forgive me. It's Anderson, Douglas Luiz on the right. So we're going a little bit different, not a true 6 being deployed here. And then in your 10 position, I'm going to go McAtee. I think this is a time for him to get a chance to have a little bit of a run in that role. On the right, you're going to have Bakwa in the place of Ndoye. And then on the left, I'm going to say you're going to go with Hutchinson, because I kind of agree with Scott. I think you need to give him a chance to get acclimated and to get some minutes and to face some live ammunition for more than just a couple of minutes at the end of a match. And at the top, I'm going to go Callum Mwendo.
Mate, you've made a lot of changes there, and it still looks like a really good team. It still looks like a really good, strong team. So for those that can't see it, it's John Victor in goal, left back Zinchenko, right back Savona, centre backs Morato, Willy Bolly. We're going 4-2-3-1. So in the 2, Anderson and Douglas Luiz. Hutchinson on the left, Backwat on the right, McAtee sitting in the 10 behind Akali Mwendo. So wholesale changes from Richard Spray. He's the boss and he's picked that team. And on the face of it, you know, there's a lot to like, isn't there? But Steve Battlemuch, I'm coming to you now and your opportunity to switch this up. So we're going to go back to the goalkeeper and then we'll go through the back line in the same way. Are you sticking with that formation or do you want to change it up?
I'm sticking with the same formation. I've got a few changes. I think in goal, and I don't know, every coach will probably say you never do this, but I would give
Steve,
Victor...
I'm just going to pause you there for a moment. Your microphone has gone really funny and we're not able to hear you for a moment. So let me just see if I can just adjust that for just one second. Let's just see if we can you try this again? Say hello, Steve.
Hello, Steve.
Hello, Steve.
Hello, Greg.
Yeah. There we go. I think we managed to maybe fix a little bit of interference. We wouldn't hear what you were saying. So let's go. Let's start that again. Off you go, Steve.
Yeah, I'm going to break every coaching manual going and say I would give 45 minutes in goal to Victor and 45 minutes in goal to Gunn because I'd like to see both of them. And I think this is the only game you could do it. But he won't do that. So I think he'll probably play Victor in goal. But I'd like to see both of them get a run out. At the back, I'd have Savona and Zinchenko as the fullbacks because I would totally rest Williams to protect him. But I would have Milenkovic alongside Morato because I think that, you need somebody at the back who knows what they're doing and sort of commands authority, and that's Milenkovic. Morato is probably going to be the first sub in for Murillo. And I just think you've got to build up those partnerships. So that would be my back four. In two in midfield, again, I would completely rest Anderson. I wouldn't risk him in this game. And I'd have Ryan Yates alongside Douglas Luiz. I think Yatesy would be well up for captaining the side in this competition. He's not going to let you down. And Luiz needs the minutes. And then my front four is exactly the same. I would have that front four, but I would be looking at bringing Jesus on for Callum Mwendo, half time or 60 minutes, because I think I'd want to see Jesus have a good run up front as well. But I think Backwat and Hutchinson deserve a start. I think we need to see what they're like. And we've got people off the bench who can then come on and give them a rest if they need to towards the end of the game.
Okay, so a very similar team. I quite like the idea of Yates coming in. It is a perfect Ryan Yates game away from home against a team in the Championship. He is our club captain. Douglas Luiz staying in your 11. So Steve's going for John Victor in goal, Zinchenko at left back, Savona right back, centre back pairings of Morato, Milenkovic, Ryan Yates and Douglas Luiz in the two in midfield, with the same front four of Hutchinson, McAtee, Backwat, and Kali Mwendo that Richard selected. Scott, your turn now. Are you sticking with something similar in terms of formation? Is it 4-2-3-1 for you?
Yeah, same formation. I think, and I think it's a really good idea around resting Nico Williams. So I think having Zinchenko and Savona, I think that's a really smart idea because you said, the number of games that we've got coming up. I'd also go for John Victor in goal. I think he needs a run in goal. So look, let's include him for this game. Morato, Milenkovic. This is probably the area where I've sort of got most. I'm sort of probably a little bit unsure. Because obviously Murillo got a knock against Arsenal, so I think he should be rested. In fact, I'm not even sure if he's back from injury. I think it'd be good for Morato to get back on the pitch again. He didn't have a great game, and he had a tough time against Arsenal. So maybe he needs to come back in and get some more game time, try and build up his confidence a little bit. And being next to Milenkovic as well, I think they played together obviously a whole host of times before, so maybe that'll be a good partnership for them and sort of from a confidence perspective. Sort of midfield wise, I've absolutely Luiz should play. I'm unsure as to why he hasn't been given an opportunity already. So absolutely, he plays. I think someone in the chat mentioned that Anderson's also played the England matches as well. So definitely let's rest him up, and I would also bring Yates in. I'm loving the three. I'm loving McAtee, Backwer, and Hutchinson. I think as I say, Hutchinson's a record signing. So absolutely, he should get another run out. Backwer looked really good. Backwer looked threatening when he came on against Arsenal. He drew a foul and a yellow card from one of the Arsenal guys as well. And McAtee looks quality when he comes on. So absolutely, these guys should be getting the opportunity. And yeah, Callum Wendo up front. I think the Backwer Callum Wendo, they're sort of the partnership that they can bring. I'd also be tempted to say to Callum Wendo and just say, look, give us 60, 70 minutes, and then we're going to bring on Igor Jesus to replace you. I think treat this game as an opportunity. Try and get. Obviously, we want the win. We want a really sound performance and make us feel good about the team. But by all means, if there's anyone that's not quite cutting it, then we've got a bench full of players who can also come on and sort of try and make a difference as well. But I like this team. We're giving opportunity to the players that haven't had a lot of opportunity thus far. And Ange needs to try out all these guys. He needs to try them out. He needs to work out, who is it that can actually deliver for him. And against a Swansea team who are doing okay, but we will still need to play well to beat them tomorrow night.
Okay, thank you very much. So your team pretty much, well, it is the same as what Steve presented as well. And it seems like you guys are on the same page then. And I'm with you as well. And Rich's team was more or less identical, barring the Anderson Yates kind of debate that's going on in the chat as well. I see value in resting Anderson for this one. And like I said before, I think this is a perfect game for Ryan Yates to come in. What would I do differently? You know what? I'm still in two minds as to what it would be, but I have laid down the challenge that this is your team. So if this was my team, who I would pick to go to Swansea, then I want to see it as attacking as possible. And so, yeah, I think Zinchenko coming in on the left-hand side defence is the right thing to do. I think getting him into a Forest shirt, even if he starts and goes off later on, I think that's good. Morato in defence at left centre-back is his best position. He should be playing there in the absence of Murillo. I think Niko Milenkovic hasn't had the greatest of starts this season to the games he's played. He had the red card against Serbia. So Milenkovic keeps his place. It's at right back that I'm kind of toying with the idea. And I think that I would take Savona out and I'd bring Zach Abbott in for this one, just purely to have Abbott getting some game time, because I think that he's going to get used along the line. In the goalkeeping department, yeah, I see value in John Victor starting, but I'm still starting Matt Sells. I want my best goalkeeper in post, in game tomorrow. That's how I would pick it. I would pick Ryan Yates in the midfield. I would start with Douglas Luiz in the midfield alongside him. I'd keep that in place. And it's in the front four that there's the options. My only change, I think, would be Igor Jesus starting in place of Cali Mwendo. I want Cali Mwendo off the bench at the moment. So for me, Igor Jesus, I want to see him getting a start. He wasn't in the squad at all at the weekend. And Jer Cunha, again, is another one that I thought about for the right back slot. Yes, they are centre backs, and yeah, we are putting a different player into the non-regular position, but we do have a lot of players throughout Forest in this squad that can operate in different areas and do it well. And so, yeah, that's how I would start, with Zinchenko, Abbott in the fullback areas, Morato, Milenkovic, Matt Sells in goal, Yates, Luiz in the midfield, Hutchinson, McAtee, Bakwa behind Igor Jesus. All right. I mean, there's so many different options, guys. We've kind of all feels like we're on the same page in terms of what we want to see. But that's a lot of changes, isn't it, Richard? And I asked the question, would Ange see this as a game where he doesn't want to make too many changes to the strongest 11 And Steve was right. Well, what is his strongest 11? Does he know his strongest 11? Maybe he sees the team that he played on Saturday as the strongest 11. Maybe he's in agreement that, well, actually, I picked that team, and I'm in agreement with Nuno that they're the best players at the moment. So could it be that Douglas Luiz doesn't start and we see Ibrahim Sangare playing? Could it be that actually Morgan Gibbs-White isn't getting dropped for this game? Bakwa might be the one that comes in with maybe Ndoye in that left-hand side position that we talked about. And Dan Ndoye, as I said, for Switzerland, has operated really well down the left and seems more comfortable on the left. Ryan Yates, we brought him in. Maybe he says, no, I'm going to stick with Elliot Anderson in there. So we end up with it looking something, and then maybe Nico Williams stays at right back. So maybe it looks like something like this. So for those of you that can see it, whilst I was talking, I'm fiddling around. Maybe Ange sees it that Sells is in goal with Zinchenko at the back. Williams is at right back. Murato and Milenkovic playing because there's no Murillo if he's injured. Anderson and Sangare keep their places. Gibbs-White in the 10, Bakwa on the right, and Ndoye on the left, and up top, Chris Wood. I mean, Richard, do you think that that's at all likely?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just a numbers game in terms of you're playing the percentages of what you know you have to prioritize. And I don't think that the Carabao Cup is anything to turn your nose up at in terms of your desire to win a cup and to have trophies, because he's made that very clear as to what he wants to do. But I think he's going to prioritize the Premier League and the Europa, and you don't want to sacrifice that by bringing in regular players. There's some credence, I think, to the idea of maybe bringing Morgan in for a half because you want to build his confidence up again. And maybe by playing against a team that's not quite of the same level that we know we're going to play, maybe in European competition or in the Premier League, there's some value to that. But I think you have to give these younger players a run of minutes to be able to see how can they operate within this offensive framework. I think Brett brought it up in the comments. It's like, if you can't change it now, then when? And I think this is a perfect opportunity, given who we're playing, given the competition we're playing them in, to go ahead and do that and to feature some of these players and give them a chance to get some match fitness as well. Zinchenko being one of those players for sure, because he hasn't played in a bit. So yeah, I just don't see him going that route, because I think you also have to manage the minutes of players that are, moving towards that mid 30s to late 30s area of their lives and in their career, that latter half, like a Chris Wood. You don't want to put him in that situation, because you're going to need him in key matches in the Premier League. You're going to need that heading ability and that craftiness inside the box to find those spaces to score goals. And Callum Mwendo is a very effective player. I have a lot of faith and a lot of belief in him. And I think you want to see, what does it look like when we have a different style of player in there as well. So like you said, you don't want to treat it as like just sort of training ground moment, but because you don't want to diminish Swansea, capability per se in that sense. But I do think this is an opportunity to really, I guess, tinker, for lack of a better word. I mean, you don't want to, like I said, you don't want to take it lightly, because they won't take it lightly, and they'll be up for it. But I do believe there's some opportunity here to put yourself in a position to see what kind of depth and kind of quality you have in that second level of your team before you start getting into European competition, before you start getting into the Premier League, so you can start to give them a chance to face some live ammunition, as it were.
Yeah, I just think that tinkering comes from changes off the bench. The more I think about it, the more I'm kind of, as much as I made my own team selection there, that was me on what I would do. But trying to get into the mindset of Ange, Steve, the more I think about it, I just don't think we're going to see many changes from Saturday. I really don't. I just think he's going to go with the same team, barring one or two changes. And Pat says, if you can't change it now, when can you change it? Ange maybe doesn't think he can afford to change it. Ange maybe thinks, no, I need to get them playing. I haven't got time to lose this game. I can't afford to lose this game. The next 3 games could potentially be the most important 3 games in Forest's whole season, Steve. And the reason why I say that is that we've got off to a very tepid start. Take away the Arsenal game. We've beaten Brentford. We've drawn with Palace. And I was very happy after that. And then we lost at home to West Ham. In an alternative universe, Nuno's still in charge, and we go to Arsenal and we lose that game anyway. All right. But we still are kind of looking at our next set of games thinking, well, look, we've got to make sure that we don't let the wheel start to come off a little bit. And for Ange, it's even more so the case as a new manager and trying to get the fan base and trying to get the feel-good factor and trying to get the results going in the right direction, because it is a results-based industry. The reason why I say I think it's the most important 3 games of our whole season is that they're the next 3 games. And they're the 3 games in the Carabao Cup that I think we want to go deep in. We want to, because I think winning games of football breeds more winning games of football. No matter what cup competition, it could be in the dog and duck competition. I still want to win that game. Then you go away at Burnley, who held Liverpool really well. That's going to be a tough trip away. And then you go away to Betis, and like you said, I don't want to go away in our first game in Europe and lose that match. 3 different competitions. And so I kind of feel like he's going to take this head on and say, no, sod that. I need to win this game. I need to set down a marker. I haven't got time to bring in players that I'm not sure about that they're my starters. That's what the bench is for. So have I convinced you maybe he won't make as many changes as we think, or you think?
I've heard that argument. I've heard a similar argument that says he wants to implement his own playing style, and he would probably want to start doing that with players that he thinks are going to play the majority of the games or majority of the Premier League games. So he would want to implement it with Gibbs White on the pitch. He'd want to implement it with Wood as a lead striker or whatever. But I think what he'll want to do is implement a style of football, a way of playing that all the squad can play. And I don't think, looking at the team that I picked and most of us picked, I don't think that's a risky team to play against Swansea. I think it's a team that can win the game. I think you'd have a couple of your other good players on the bench, but I literally would rest completely Gibbs White, Anderson, Nico. I just don't think you want to risk them picking up an unnecessary injury in the Carabao Cup when you've got a key Premiership game on Saturday and then our first European game in a week's time. So I would rest them, but I think the training sessions he's had and the game style, and those players will be playing in the training sessions. They'll be playing again in training Thursday, Friday. They could slot back in on Saturday. They're intelligent players, and I think other players can do that job against Swansea. And I'd be surprised if there are not 6, 7, 8 changes from the side that played on Saturday.
Okay, I'd be surprised if there are. So we're and that's what we love about this. People see things differently. We can have a conversation, a debate about it. And it's not about being right, is it? It's no. You're not looking to be right. I'm not looking to be right in all this. I'm just giving you my opinion before the ball that is kicked and the team is selected. It's just kind of how I kind of see things, and we all see things slightly differently. Scott, have you been kind of maybe more convinced towards the idea of less changes? Or are you still with Steve that 6 or 7 changes incoming?
I think there is some sense in keeping some of the players that played against Arsenal on the weekend, and then bringing in, I don't know, so approximately say half and half, bringing in some of the squad players and bringing them in, just so you've got that more of the experience and the people that have been playing regular. I think that's probably more likely. I think Ange will probably more likely do that. I think the wholesale changes, I'd like to see wholesale changes, but I think it's probably more unlikely, just because I think there's probably more risk associated with doing that. I think Ange wants a good performance. He wants us to attack. He'll want us to win the game, obviously. But I think there's having a core of players that have played regularly so far and bringing in and sort of smattering of some of the other squad players is likely. But what the hell? I want to see all the squad play. I want to see all the other squad players. I think as the guy in the chat said, Pat said, if it's not this game, then when is he going to bring them all in? This is a great opportunity to bring in those players. I can see the argument for it, a bit of half and half approximately. But to me, this is the opportunity to bring in all those players that haven't had regular games. Rest the players that have been playing regular, and rest those players that are obviously we are going to be most likely going to be starting on Saturday and next Wednesday. to me, it makes a lot of sense. This is the best game when you consider what it is that we've got ahead of us.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I might have dipped out of my internet through it now. I think I'm back now. My gut feeling is that Ange is who he is. You know, he keeps saying it.
It's just who we are, mate.
It's who we are, mate. And he is quite stubborn. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him go as unchanged as possible for the next 3 games. Again, I'm just guessing to a certain degree and probably way off it. We're out of time, guys. It's been a fantastic chat. Just gone over the hour mark. Do us a favour, everyone. If you haven't done so already, please do go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe and tell your friends and spread the word. We're on X, we're on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram as well. So please do hit like and subscribe. And anyone on Apple and Spotify listening, please go ahead and give us that review. The subscribers have gone up by about 10 or so in the last hour. So thank you very much to everyone that has clicked the button. Really appreciate it. Scott from Down Under, Steve Battlemuch, thank you very much to you both for being with us. Great to see you with us again. And I'll cross to my co-host and co-creator of Talking Reds, Richard Spray, for some final thoughts.
Yeah, I was feeling a bit down in the dumps, as you can imagine, after the Arsenal match. Not so much because of the performance of that in isolation. It was just where things are, right? And just feeling like things aren't quite right. So, but I definitely think this is a match where, to your point, Greg, you can make the argument about adding regulars into the starting lineup simply because you want to see a performance. You want to see some domination in terms of how we play, especially on the attacking side. And let's say too on the defensive side as well, because it hasn't been quite as stout and as compact and as well managed as it was last season. But I tend to believe that, you know what, you saw Villa last season and Crystal Palace start out a bit slow, and then they just absolutely accelerated as we went through the remainder of the season, to the point where Villa, I think, won like 9 or 10 matches in a row. And so we've got the quality, I think. We've got the coach, I think. As everyone keeps saying, let's just really back what he's doing. And I tend to believe this is a team that there's just too much quality, too much talent, and they're gonna come good. And I think it begins with this match on Wednesday, where we start to see, even if we play a lot of different players, I think the way that the system will be managed, the framework that he'll have, and the way that he'll set it up, the plan, if you will, the strategic plan, will allow for us to see something a little bit more exciting and a little bit more, it just generates a little bit more positivity moving into Premier League play on Saturday and then going forward into Europe, as Steve pointed out, against Betis. We just need that momentum. We need that desperately to drive it home and progress as a team and as a club. So I'm very positive that regardless of who ends up on the pitch, I think we're going to play a really good match. We're going to show our fan base again. This team is, it's not a dire straits. Okay, guys, we're gonna be all right. Everything's gonna be okay. It may not be 7th in the Premier League, but it's gonna be a great season nonetheless. So, yeah. You Reds.
Indeed. Last season was a fantastic season for Nottingham Forest. We thought that we were going to get into the Champions League for much of it, really, sitting in those top echelons, but it wasn't to be in the end. But as Forest fans, we still came away feeling really grateful for the work Nuno did, and really thankful that we did achieve European football for the first time in so long. And we ended up in the Europa League, and we won't go into the whys and wherefores of that, but it is the Europa League for Nottingham Forest. And last season, Ange Postecoglou had the Premier League season to forget. It was an absolute disaster. But he did win the Europa League, and he did get qualification for Spurs for the Champions League. So he would have felt that he was going to be going into the Champions League himself this season, and they kick off their Champions League games tonight. So there might be a thought in Ange's head as Spurs go into the Champions League that should be him. But I'm hoping that he is now focused, as we are, on these games ahead. When we look at the next one coming up, it is Swansea. The Europa is coming up next week. It's all eyes on Swansea tomorrow night as Ange Postecoglou goes away for yet another game with Nottingham Forest. He's going to be implementing his style and making sure that whoever takes the pitch knows exactly what their job entails, and we see plenty of Ange ball. The season starts now. Strap yourselves in.
Stats all Come join Greg and Richard right here on Dark and Red.